Well, good morning, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to this panel session, which will tackle sustainability and the circular economy as it relates to fire safety. Can I also extend my personal thanks to Terry and all at the IFSJ as well for an invitation to join you all for the first time ever. So far, it's been very engaging, very interesting. I'm not averse to having to speak publicly at these events, and it's really interesting to see a very different perspective at a global scale on some of the topics that are affecting us all when we look at the global economy as it's evolving for fire safety. A short introduction as to who I am before I introduce the wealth of expertise that you see before you here. My name's Aman Sharma. I am the Chief Executive Officer of an organisation called Totus Digital. I'm perhaps best known for my work after the Grenfell Tower tragedy, where I was asked by the Secretary of State at the time to come into the Ministry of Housing and advise ministers and the Secretary of State on all things building and fire safety as we brought forward primary and secondary legislation. I held that role as Deputy Chair of the Building Regulations Advisory Committee for some 6 years. I also hold a role within the British Standards Institution as well. So we've heard from some of our committee members already, and I have to disclose that it's my job to chair a committee called FSH Naught, and FSH Naught governs the development of all British standards, harmonised standards, European and international standards that have the words fire and safety in them. So my strategic committee has been somewhat busy these last few years, as I'm sure you can imagine, and my personal thanks also to those panel members that sit and make those standards on our behalf, some of whom are in the room today. So, as you can see before you here, we have a wealth of expertise that's ready to join us for this session. If I could ask our panelists to come up and if we can thank them in the normal way and applaud them, please, and I'll introduce them once they're sat down. So please come forward, panelists. Thank you. Thank you all. So, in no particular order, I'm absolutely privileged to welcome Sajid Raza as the Chief Executive Officer of Butler Engineering. I'm going to shamelessly read from my script here for these bios because I don't want to miss any details. It's all relevant. But under Sajid's leadership at Butler Fire, who provide a wide range of fire engineering and life safety consulting services globally, Sajid received his mechanical engineering degree from Aligarh Muslim University and an MBA from Jamia, both in India. With a strong belief in continuous learning, he took up various training courses, and he's the Middle East Chair for the International Fire Stop Council, advocating a continuous fire safety improvement. He's a member of the UAE Fire Code Council, and he provides a unique dimension to the philosophy of fire safety as it relates to design, install, inspect, and maintenance. Furthermore, his all-round contribution to fire safety led him to be part of several UL standards and on technical panels thereof, and the IAS Technical Advisory Council, IFC Inspector, and Special Inspection Training Committees. We've heard from Andy this morning as well, but I'll do his introduction again because it's well worth doing. He is the Joint Managing Director of Britannia Fire Limited, and as we've heard, is a leading UK manufacturer of composite fire extinguishers. He's a board director at the Fire Industry Association and council member for Extinguishing Council and Composites UK representative on BSI's FSH2 panel. So thank you, Andy, for your work there. And he's on a personal mission to make the industry do better by simplifying fire safety, reducing unnecessary costs for the end user, and minimising environmental impact. Rima Boudaba as well is with us today, and she's an experienced sustainability manager with a master's degree in civil engineering from Grenoble, France. She began her career in Paris with Vinci Construction, lucky you, where she served as a sustainability project manager, leading the implementation of sustainability strategies during the construction supervision of high-profile developments across Paris. She holds professional certifications and brings a holistic understanding of sustainability throughout the full project lifecycle, combining technical knowledge with a practical, results-driven approach. Ryan is over there as well. Good morning to Ryan. And I'm delaying so I can switch my screen. Ryan Didser is the MD of Tufking, which is the oldest firefighting footwear manufacturer in the UK, operating since 1854. As a former fire and rescue service officer, I've worn many a Tufking product, so thank you for keeping my feet safe and warm over the years, Ryan. He's a board member of the PCIAW and committee member of the BSI Firefighting PPE Standards. He offers his vast experience in public procurement of technical protective equipment, and in particular brings a wealth of experience manufacturing technical footwear for the fire and rescue services, where Tough King have reduced injury statistics in their active tenders, including UK brigades, NHS, and the police. Driven by innovation, Ryan and his team at Tough King continue to push the boundaries of the industry by developing raw materials made from genuine recycled content, adhering to safety standards. And throughout his tenure, he's collaborated with governments in no less than 21 countries to develop PPE that ensures the protection of emergency service personnel. So a warm welcome to you all as we jump into this particular session. And I think if we accept that the circular economy as a concept is an economic system that focuses on reducing waste and maximizing resources, I'd like to know from each of you, please, what sustainability means to you and how the circular economy as it relates to fire safety has evolved. And Rima, perhaps we could start with you.
First of all, thanks, Sharma, for having me into this panel discussion. As we know, circular economy principles has a big impact on fire safety principles and materials, especially that the building and product are increasingly designed for reused and recycled. First of all, when we talk about circular economy and fire safety of the product, we need to understand what are the principles of the circular economy and which product we are talking about. Are we referring to the passive product, for example, like concrete and gypsum and so on, or are we talking about passive product like sprinklers systems? If we have a look to each of the circular economy principles, starting by the most prominent one, which is the recycled and reused materials, we know that these materials has a known fire safety performance. And we don't have data about that, so ensuring that they are meeting the current standards, fire safety standards and code. If we talk about the design for disassembly for the building, for example, these buildings or these elements, they use modular connection, and this might compromise the compartmentalization of the system. As they are not permanent joint. If we have a look to the, for example, extended product, which means that the product is stay in circularity, and we use the product as long as we can. So aging materials also, they may degrade in fire safety performance over the time. If we have a look to the innovative product like bio-based and so on, we have a lack of information, historical testing data from fire safety perspective. So for me, it's about when we look to the circular economy principles with the fire safety together, we have to look at each of these principles and what is needed and required to make the product safe and to meet the current standards and code.
Thank you. And Sajid, I wonder whether or not you can provide a unique perspective on the same question, but from a fire engineering perspective specifically.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This sustainability is the talk of the town, and this circular economy is going to be the talk of the town forever, I think next 20, 30, 50 years. Sustainability, to me, is doing the right things. I would explain it in a Swedish word, lagom. This says, not too much, not too little, just the right amount. This message goes down. We are really working on, many sessions have happened on this sustainability and circular economy in the UAE. When it comes to sustainability and the circular economy in fire safety, it means designing the buildings with sustainable materials without compromising the fire protection features, which is a challenge. Someone might ask a question, how is it possible to ensure that we have a fire-safe product, is still lightweight, sustainable, green? So this, in my opinion, I would put it in a fashion that these two elements should be really talked as integral part of each other instead of conflicting. This has been a debate in 2012. I'm talking about 12 years back, 13 years back. Now, fire-safe products can't be sustainable, and sustainable products can't be fire-safe. Over the period of 12, 13 years, so much has evolved, as she mentioned clearly, that There are test data available, test standards available. In short, I would say, to me, it's about seeing the fire safety and sustainability as one goal instead of conflicting goal. Even though there might be some challenges, the codes and standards which the authorities are working on, few of the examples in the past have been that we achieved the best net zero buildings here in the UAE, and there are many which are positive. So for me, sustainability and circular economy, they, in terms of fire safety, they go hand in hand. That's it, lack of time, so I would just stop here so that we can have the next.
And I think what you've invited us to do is think about sustainability in the circular economy, both of your contributions, as almost first principles for fire engineering, as much as computational analysis might be, as much as information management is starting to emerge to be that as well. It's a mindset shift, is the takeaway from that one. And I wonder then, Ryan, how that translates into the manufacturing world and supplies of PPE specifically. So what does the circular economy and sustainability mean for you in your particular part of the sector?
Well, for me, as a manufacturer of PPE, the first and most important thing I always talk about when it comes to sustainability is quality. If you make a good quality product that's going to last and stand the test of time, it's not going to end up in a landfill. So I always say the most sustainable product is a quality product. That's the most important in the manufacturing process. But I think you touched on a very important point. You mentioned mindset change, but I think historically, and what we've already been discussing a little bit on the panel is, there's been this historic perception that a recycled or a sustainable component is not necessarily as durable or as safe as a virgin component. And I think now we've come a long way in that. So when talking about sustainability in manufacturing, yes, it's about the transparency in the supply chain. Do you have solar panel roofing on your manufacturing facility? Are you using recycled components where possible? And I think that has now really started to change. In regards to footwear, which is my specialty, you're talking of more than 100 components that can go into a single pair of boots. So it's just about having that traceability. Are the leathers vegetable tanned instead of being tanned with chemicals to speed the processes? Are you using composite fiberglass toe caps that are made from recycled components? Are you working with PFAS-free waterproof membranes that are free of any type of contaminants that are made from recycled PES materials? So for me, instead of boring everybody and going through every single component in a footwear product, it's just about us having that transparency and doing our best as a manufacturer to push those boundaries and keep our raw material suppliers in check so that we're getting the most sustainable products. And product life cycle is also so important. Now we've come a long way. We have developed end-of-life solutions for PPE, which 10 years ago, this was a non-existent issue. So I think the more that we're continuing to get pushed by the end users, it's going to continue to innovate.
Thank you. And Andy, I wonder, you touched on it very briefly in your presentation moments ago, and clearly there will be a distinction between what circular economies and sustainability and net zero approaches would mean for manufacturers of PPE and perhaps providers, suppliers, manufacturers of passive and active fire safety equipment. I wonder if you could give a short synopsis of how you see those nuances manifesting.
Yeah, I think that we need to embrace that innovation. We need to embrace that sustainability. And we get so much value out of working with our key stakeholders. So we've got a relationship with Heathrow Airport. We've completely put our extinguishers throughout their estate. But when we manufacture anything, we have our mindset is, what's its secondary purpose? So what is a secondary use we can use it for? And if we can't find a secondary use, we don't use it. It's simple as that. So for example, and I'll go back to Heathrow in a second, but for example, our hoses is chopped up at the end of its life and it's used as equestrian matting or for playgrounds for kids' areas where they're not going to fall and bump themselves. But when we talk to Heathrow, it's really exciting because they're on that journey as well with the circular economy as well. And after the 10-year life that we have with the P50 and we go for recycling, the outer jackets that we can take off, we can grind that down and mix with another innovative provider who can then produce walkways for the pathways, but not the runways, definitely not. But certainly for the walkways for the people to walk around the airport. So it's that whole mindset of what can we do and what added value can we give back to the customer that will be that secondary point as well. And that is a growing topic within our customers.
Perhaps Heathrow can embrace a recycled runway after I've landed safely back at Terminal 3 on Friday morning. Rima, I just wonder, we spoke a little bit about mindset shifts and philosophies and strategic concepts and principles here. Fire engineering is a profession as old as time and is wrongly, I think, referred to as a novel concept. Indeed, the Romans can be attributed to being fire engineers. But we are talking about an emerging concept here, an emerging principle, and how it translates to fire engineering specifically, so the planning and design phases of infrastructure and buildings. What do you perceive the main barriers for that profession to be to embrace that new mindset shift of sustainability?
The first thing that comes into my mind is the lack of tested and certified circular materials. We don't have enough data when we talk about circularity, recycled content, when we reuse the materials from building to another building or from the asset to another asset. So we don't look at the, myself, I don't look at the fire performance of that product. So the first thing is the lack of tested and certified materials. And also, from my experience, we don't coordinate with the manufacturers or with the fire engineers and fire consultants to see if we can, when we design for the building, when we include the green materials, if this has an impact on fire safety, fire performance of the product. And also, maybe the leaders in the market, fire engineers, consultant, manufacturers, they may lack trainings on how to include the circularity with the fire safety, and vice versa. Also, the fire safety code and standards, if they include also or they account for the circularity for the materials. So for me, these are the main barriers for now. So it's basically, ensuring that sustainable choices are also safe choices. And nowadays it's still separated. We are not combining both aspects.
So we've already heard at least 2 call to actions this morning already on education, and I had another one in there as well. So we're really reinforcing that message. And Sajid, I wonder if you would probably have some views on that point too.
Absolutely. In fact, the main barriers to embracing sustainability, specifically focusing on fire safety, I will build up on what Rima said, that regulatory gaps. This is an evolving field. So I would say fire codes often lack the sustainability integration, which is written purely on the conventional way. Limited fire data, which is very challenging, that we talk about the materials being used and the perception of risk. This one. Cost barriers, these are definitely, the first perception comes, oh, it's sustainable, it will be expensive. We do not go into the circular economy, that if we do things right, instead of maintaining the product, replacement is the option. I would not agree. One example, in our office, we just got the CCTV installed. The gentleman came, everything is wrong. The beautiful 15 cameras in another office, the switch was off, the gentleman comes, everything is wrong, I have to replace this. The gentleman contacted the source, he said, "Oh, let me come back. It's working. What will happen to those 15 cameras?" They go into literally recycling. Or we say it that not to be used. The other one is the lack of collaboration. We have to bring the manufacturers, the authorities, especially who are looking at the fire perspective, and last but not the least, end-of-life challenges. We believe in the product, just discard it. No, in my opinion, would say, look at it. When it comes to fire protection, life safety, fire protection products, look at their durability, maintenance. If it is not to be replaced, do not replace it. And this is a message for our industry here. In fire protection, we are very sensitive. If it's a repairable, it can be maintained. We should look at that, not replacing that. This is what my take will be.
And this comes back to the behavioural approaches, doesn't it? This comes back to engineers, designers, contractors, commissioning parties, all actually thinking consciously at a neurological level almost that sustainability, net zero approaches and the circular economy is absolutely at the heart of their specific objectives. And again, Ryan, I wonder whether or not that presents barriers to manufacturers of PPE in some respects.
Definitely. From a procurement perspective, we're seeing, especially in the UK and the European market, that the weighting for sustainability is increasing every single year. A decade ago, it may have been somewhere between 3 to 5% on a firefighting tender. Now you're upwards of 20%. This will help influence us as manufacturers and pressure us, as it should, to develop more sustainable solutions. But what I really liked was his piece about collaboration, because particularly in PPE, it's often been compartmentalized, and the different forms of PPE are almost in their own silos. Here are the helmets, here are the gloves, here are the suits, here are the boots. But what I think is happening today is the raw materials, for example, that we use, Andy and I were discussing just before this, we're both working with Kevlar. And I had no idea that for the extinguishers, this was something that they're working with. So it's about working together and collaborating and trying to find sustainable solutions where there is an overlap in these raw materials.
Collaboration, I fear, is something we're going to hear a lot of today, and rightly so. And we've already heard a couple of times this morning about the importance of that symbiotic approach to some of these concepts. And as experienced standard makers for the national standards body in the UK, for example, I think we collectively recognise, and this might be a global issue as well, that regulation can only affect change up to a point. Thereafter, it becomes the adoption of standards and guidance that actually drives changes at scale, as we've seen in the recent past. And Andy, I wonder whether or not standard development has moved quickly enough in this space, and I struggle, even in my senior role in BSI, to think of a standard that actually touches on this space.
No, it's definitely lacking. Collaboration is the key from all of this, absolutely. And British standards, so for those of you who don't get involved in standards writing, and it is very time consuming to do, but when you sit at these committee meetings, you sit around a table with other people with vested interests, absolutely, and they're paid high salaries to attend these meetings and so on, but they're there for their own gain. They're not there for the general gain, and that mindset needs to change. We should all be sitting there saying, well, look, yeah, we want to do things better, but how do we do it together? Not be so guarded. So that collaboration really needs to come through, because if we don't, and as somebody told me a saying when I was a young guy, very young guy, and this chap said to me, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Yeah. So why are we doing it? Why aren't we working together for the benefit of everybody?
Innovation, not just in the subject, but innovation in how we tackle these challenges as well. What a powerful message that is. So, ladies and gents, can I ask you to thank our panellists in the usual way, please? And back over to Terry. Thank you.